Good morning and welcome to SimWorld TV, a SimWorld Today issue here on April 15th. I am joined on Tuesday by Rico, which can mean one and one thing only, Rico, and that's we're talking SWBA, and we've got later tonight the play-in games, which obviously will be exciting. Yesterday brought us a whole bunch of news on the firing front. First off, good morning. How are you? We've got a lot to get to.
Yeah, man. Good morning, and thanks a lot for having me. It's always a pleasure to get here to SW today, and man, it's just always great to wake up to this show. So it's a pleasure to be on.
So let's start with the firing, which is it's comical at this point that the Phoenix Suns are going through yet another head coach after they fire Mike Budenholzer. I think I'm getting. Why am I struggling right now? Mike Budenholzer going down. There we go. Um,
Mhm.
your takeaway. This is now going to be four coaches in 3 years for the Suns after they fire Bud. In what I don't know. I don't know who to blame here because I feel like it's everyone's fault. But your takeaway is Budenholzer out in Phoenix.
Yeah. So just reflecting on just talking about this yesterday, I just think that this organization is a mess, and I think from the top all the way down to maybe the people that sell stuff at the concession stand. No, I'm just joking. No, it's a mess there. From the top to bottom, and I think that here when you're looking at this, they have what, three coaches that they're still on the payroll? No, yeah, three coaches that are still on the payroll. Two. You have Mike Budenholzer, and then you also have Frank Vogel. So they're still paying them. Monty Williams, they don't have to pay because he ended up getting hired, so they were good there. But they almost had three coaches that they would have to be paying. And then when you look at just the fact that what I think that they had the highest payroll in all of SWBA, and you failed to make the playoffs, like I think that there should be more of a storyline about, maybe what are you going to do with Kevin Durant? What are you going to do with Devin Booker? Because those are players you actually can move and you have some control over. Bradley Beal has a no trade clause in his contract. So I mean, what are you going to do with that? He's already, I think, kind of held up some stuff that maybe, were speculations about where this Phoenix Suns were going at the trade deadline, this last one. And so they're in a tough situation. And I think that I don't know how this organization didn't see really the same stuff that happened with the Brooklyn Nets a couple seasons ago when Kevin Durant was there, where they have a top heavy roster and you have so many holes to fill. You just cannot do what the Phoenix Suns are trying to do, where you have three stars and then you could just try to fill it in. It's just the way the tax aprons and things work. You can't do what LeBron and those guys did in the Miami Heat situation.
Yeah, this is a Phoenix organization that is so horribly mismanaged right now, and I'm shocked that James Jones hasn't lost his job at this point, considering they've gone through pretty much everything else. But at the end of the day, this feels like it wasn't not the Coach Bud firing, but this roster and organization as a whole is a reflection of their ownership. And Matt Ishbia has made this the most dysfunctional, mismanaged, poorly constructed roster and organization from top down in the entire league. And this is a malpractice to Coach Bud, who I'm not even that high on. I truthfully think Coach Bud was on his
Yeah.
way to being fired in Milwaukee before they won the championship. You can't convince me otherwise. I think there's a big reason why Rick Carlisle dropped out from Dallas, because Coach Bud was on his way out in Milwaukee. And with that being said, this is not Coach Bud's fault. This is such a poorly designed roster that they have no patience to allow anything to play out. So you don't allow a team that goes to the finals to say, let's run it back with small tweaks around it, and what Monty Williams did. No, you say we tear this thing down. Then, once that first tear down and restructure doesn't work, you say, well, let's double down on that and let's bring in a defensive head coach to try to figure things out. That doesn't work for a season, so you blow that up. You say, no, what we needed was an offensive head coach. That doesn't work out for a season, so you blow it. It's not the head coach's fault. Rico, it's not the head coach's fault. This team
Yep.
is just so poorly designed and structured. They have nothing of competency beyond their top two players. That's why they stink, and it has nothing to do with the guy that's calling plays and holding the clipboard.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, and I feel you with Coach Bud. And here's the deal I'm gonna say about that. He's actually been successful at all his stops. I know it
Yeah.
hasn't been the prettiest exits, but look, we got to give him some credit here. I think he definitely had some success with the Milwaukee Bucks. You got to give him his credit when he was with the Atlanta Hawks. They
Yep.
just ran into those LeBron James teams over there, but still very successful there. And I think that based off what he was given with this roster, why are we not talking about the fact that Kevin Durant went down at the beginning of the season? He went down at the end of the season. Then you also had Bradley Beal, who was out. And then, Devin Booker, he probably was the most healthiest player that played for him there. Look, he missed some games too as well. Like, it's a roster that literally it wasn't even on the floor to really
Yeah.
gel together. So, I mean, it just seems like he's the scapegoat.
He's gonna be the fall, but the problem is the guy that really is responsible for this is the guy that's standing with a checkbook that he has opened up and said that 26 other rosters would trade spots with him, and I promise you, 29 rosters would not. Even teams sitting there in Washington, in Charlotte, would not want the absolute debacle and laughing stock that they have made the Phoenix Suns in the span of 2.5 years of ownership. The person might be better than the previous one, but the functionality of this organization from the top down is not any better. All right, let's talk about people that are actually good, and that is the postseason is starting this weekend. Officially, we have the play-in games that starts tonight as the Warriors and the Warriors and the Grizzlies try to lock up the 7th spot in the East or in the West, and the Magic go for the opportunity to try to get into the postseason in the Eastern Conference. So, what is at this point, and you can make a hypothetical guess of who you think might end up as the 7 or 8 seed in the East and West. What's your most anticipated series coming up here, Rico?
We're talking playoffs, play-in. Where are we going first? Where do you want to go?
Wherever you want to go, just what are you most looking forward to? We'll go with like an actual series, just the one game play in. I'm not, let's not go that route. So once we actually have matchups, and like I said, you could say, well, I think the Warriors win, so they'll play the Rockets, or I think the Grizzlies win and they play the Rockets. That's my most anticipated one. So where, just in general, most anticipated series?
Yeah, so I'm thinking that Golden State is going to advance here, and so kind of a spoiler alert. But look, I think that Rockets and Golden State series is going to be very interesting, and I think that man, you talk about a major test for a young unit in the Rockets. Man, I've loved everything that they've been doing this season. Really scary with what's going on with Jalen Green. I think that man, when he's really good, it's great. But man, when he's bad, the floor is really bad there. And so I think that he is going to have to put together some really good games in order to put away this Golden State Warriors team that is awfully experienced. And I think that a lot of us have been talking about this team that, look, if they get in, I don't know if you want to see the Golden State Warriors with playoff Jimmy, just the experience with Steph Curry, Draymond, Steve Kerr, like Gary Payton II, Kevon Looney. Like they have so many people that have been to the top, and so I'm so like curious to see what is the response of Houston in this type of situation. And so I know they're playing with house money, but that's my most anticipated here in the West. I think in the Eastern Conference for me, I've been talking about it, but I think the Pistons. I think that they're going to shake some things up. I really do. I think that this Pistons team with Cade Cunningham, a lot of people maybe argue it could be the most improved player of the year in the SWBA. But man, I just love the mix of veteran presence that they have in that locker room, and then also too, I love the fact that they have a big man that I think is set to be very good in Durham. I think he's going to be spectacular. So this young Pistons team, they might shake it up early against the Knicks. And honestly, I think if the Knicks lose, this could be it for Thibodeau. I really do. I think Thibodeau could not make it into next season. I think he might get fired.
Well, especially if you lose to Detroit, who I don't think really has much of a puncher's chance. I mean, Vegas has them at -7.5 right now, the Knicks. So for game one, I don't think this is a great story for the Pistons. I don't think it's a great long It won't be a long story. I think it's a chapter book story for Detroit. It's not a New York Times bestseller story. But to me, my most anticipated series is the Clippers and the Nuggets because I think a lot hinges on it. Right. So on the one hand, you've got Denver, who's just fired their head coach. They think that this is the jolt they need. I talked about that on Monday. This is the jolt they need to get into the postseason and make a run. And I've never heard of a team win a championship when they said, we're really stagnant right now. Let's mix it up and fire our leader, regardless of what that locker room feels around him. Maybe this is the exception to the rule, and it's just the new voice is just so much needed. But you've got an MVP candidate, any other season, the runaway MVP in Nikola Jokic, surrounded by a roster of guys that have been picked off, from what they were 2 seasons ago when they were a championship team because Calvin Booth said, no, I need to draft young guys, make it cost controlled, and we can pull this thing off. It hasn't worked. So you got this massive stakes of what happens if they lose. Does Nikola Jokic say, where can I go? I don't think he will. I think you're going to hear a lot of that, but Nikola Jokic doesn't strike me as somebody who would go somewhere else. But you're going to get that type of drama surrounding your organization. Meanwhile, on the other side, it's this Clippers team that was a fun little story for the majority of the season, and then January rolls around, Kawhi Leonard comes back, and on Sunday, he looked like prime Kawhi Leonard. He looked absolutely fantastic. They're going to get a week off for Kawhi to get even better. And then it's, well, what about James Harden? James Harden has traditionally been a guy that never gets it done in the postseason. He always falters. Kawhi Leonard is a guy that carried the Raptors to a championship. So to me, it's the most interesting story because one of these two teams is going home. It's either an MVP candidate, best player in the entire world, is going home, or it's a team with Kawhi Leonard who, when he's healthy, looks like he could be the best player in the entire world. That to me is the most interesting matchup in the first round. All right, I want to get your take here. LA and LA. The Clippers obviously going up against Denver. The Lakers going up in as a number 3 seed against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Which team from LA has the better chances of a SWBA championship?
Oh, the better chances of an SWBA championship. I'm going to say between the two LA teams, to me, I'm going to go with the Clippers.
Okay.
I think that they would have the best chance. I do. Even though you have LeBron James and you have the fact that he's been an SWBA champion, you also have to look at the fact that Kawhi has been a champion. Ty Lue, he's been a champion coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that with the Clippers roster, it's constructed a bit better for just really, I think, the storm that it would take to get there. With the Lakers, I'm very concerned with the way that this roster is constructed. I mean, I just feel like that. Look, if LeBron is not 100%, which I don't know, I'm not in that locker room. I haven't really followed that team too closely there. I will here in a moment to find out what the situation is because I know he had a little bit of a growing issue or something like that, but I think that that's going to play a factor. Then when you look at the fact they don't have a legit big man, if Jackson Hayes goes down, gets into foul trouble, do you really think that you can trust Jared Vanderbilt? Is Austin Reeves and Luka going to be enough? I just don't like that. And then you have a first year head coach in JJ Redick. Give me the Clippers. They would be the ones to somehow put the ghost of the past, and just kind of exercise those demons and somehow get out of the West and get it done. Even though I know that this franchise has had a tough time when they get to the playoffs.
I'm going the opposite reason, or the opposite side for one reason, and that's the fact that the Lakers side of the bracket doesn't feature the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, it's that simple. I think the Clippers are really good, but I have to now trust Kawhi Leonard to stay healthy for 2 months of basketball, in which the final 6 weeks are going to be playing every other day. We saw him when they went up against the Suns a couple years ago when Paul George was still in town, and this team looked really good. But then Kawhi Leonard has the knee injury. It turns out to be a torn ACL, and he's done for the next year. So I have to trust him to be healthy. I have to trust James Harden, who has been one of the game's most notorious postseason choke artists, which I think might be a little overblown. I think we might just be leaning into the story a little bit, but there's a reason that story exists. I have to rely on them to get through and then beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I have
Mhm.
said from the beginning that I think Oklahoma City is winning or making it to the SWBA Finals. I stand by that. I am not changing my opinion on that. I think that the Thunder are the best team in basketball. And so for the Clippers to have to go through that with all those other caveats. Meanwhile, the Lakers, you get a Wolves team who I think they're going to beat. You're getting either the Rockets, who I have been skeptical about, or the Warriors or the Grizzlies, which holes in that. And this is not to say that I don't think the Lakers are flawed. I think they're very flawed. But they don't have to deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Thunder have been leaps and bounds better than the rest of the Western Conference. So, if it's in my opinion, I think it's a better. Plus, you not only can you get further if you're the Lakers, there's more chances for the Thunder to get tripped up. As much as I like them, that's what you're hoping for by getting on the opposite side of the bracket, is that somebody else rises to the occasion and upsets the Thunder so you don't have to. And that's where I think that's why the Lakers are sitting there in much better position than the alternative.
I mean, it's not a bad, kind of assumption there. And I just think that like the bottom line is with the Clippers, and I'll say this again, and just having, just a lot of connection to that franchise. Look, they have had a lot of heartbreaks when it comes to the postseason. They have had Lob City. They've had some very good seasons. And then it's just always something goes wrong with this team in the postseason. And it's just one of those things where you just can't question the talent. Like it's there. It's looked good. They've looked the part. In yesterday's game against the Golden State Warriors, like it looked like the Kawhi Leonard from 2019
Right.
with the Raptors there. I was like, oh my goodness! Like if you get that with that team, I'm like, who is going to beat that? I mean, I know it's going to be tough with OKC, but I'm like, they are really going to give anybody a run. But it's always something that happens. You mentioned it with the injuries, and then with the Lakers. I get it that they're on the better side of the bracket, but I think also too we have to look, is LeBron James healthy? And then there's other factors that kind of fact into this thing because I think that LeBron traditionally, when he's gotten to the dance and he's won it all, he's really had some good shooters around him. I question that. And then also too, the big man just that really scares me. I don't know if they have enough to withstand some of that they're going to face here.
Yeah, their lack of interior size is going to ultimately be, I think, what tears them down. All right, that's our show. Rico, appreciate you coming on and joining us. We have a huge night of SWBA action with the play-in, the first day of it. We got a huge night of college basketball as well. Day and night, triple header starts at 1 o'clock with UConn Marquette, continues Butler, Villanova, Minnesota, Illinois at 7 and 8:30. So, whole big day of Tuesday night basketball on April 15th. Rico, by the time we talk to you again, which we will next Tuesday, we'll have a week's worth of play-in games and the start of the postseason to react to. The best part, actually the second best part, conference semifinals, in my opinion, is the best part of the postseason for the SWBA. But appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you all tuning in here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.